Gratitude. I think we must talk about gratitude. If you watched my last video, we talked about the constant craving for noise, about overstimulation, and about how we consume so much so constantly that the feeling of silence has become uncomfortable. And after making that video, I thought more about the idea. And it made me realize that human beings only appreciate anything once we are deprived of it. Water tastes best when you're thirsty. Rest feels best when you're exhausted. Company matters the most when you've been alone for a long time. But nowadays we just consume so much so constantly that your mind stops valuing anything. It just stops treating all that information as less valuable. Schopenhauer once said, and I don't always agree with Schopenhauer, but he said, the human life is like a pendulum between desire and boredom. And as I have grown up, I have found that to be more and more true. Because nowadays, everything is so readily available. You just think of it and it's there. Nothing is absent. Everything is accessible. And I think that is why everybody nowadays feels so emotionally flat. You have movies, you have music, you have information, entertainment, people, anything. So you don't value anything because you have everything in abundance. And this constant consumption just has ruined us, I feel. Recently I watched this movie called Soy Cuba or I Am Cuba. And this is such an image-heavy film, Every single image is so powerful. And the film really made me realize what I was talking about. It made me realize why abundance is such a bad thing and how having less makes you appreciate the things you have. Every shot, in this film, the camera just lingers. The film doesn't try to overstimulate you. It takes its own time. And because of that, it makes you notice things more. It makes you see things. But nowadays, in our modern life, it's almost like we're not allowed to do anything slowly. Everything is about the next thing, It's about the next movie. It's about the next film. It's about the next video. It's about the next music. It's about the next whatever you're going to do, but you're never present in the moment, And the strange thing happened in your mind where it's like because you consume so much so constantly, the things you love don't have that magic anymore. They've lost it. Movies have become content. Music is just background noise. Conversations have become distractions, and people have become disposable. Blaise Pascal said, that all of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit in a room quietly by himself. And the more and more we live, it becomes more terrifyingly true. Because nowadays, it's all about the noise. It's not about the moment. You're never present, even though you think you do. And I think, again, we need to be bored. We need to be bored. Yes, boredom restores your sensitivity towards life. It makes you see life the old way. If you consume less, if you listen to less music, less movies, less everything, and then it makes you appreciate that more. Say like food. Food tastes best when you're hungry. Work is something that can be most appreciated by somebody who's been unemployed. Let's say company. Company is something that only someone who's been lonely for some time or been away from people can truly appreciate. And I find this especially true with films. Sometimes I watch so many movies back to back to back, scene after scene and film after film, and you just keep consuming more and more and more, and there's no stop. And then you lose the value for the films. It's like, I can't take it anymore. I don't feel it. I don't understand them emotionally, and if that doesn't happen, then I feel like I don't want to watch them. And so oftentimes I will take a break and I will go away and I will not watch movies for a particular time. I will do something else, maybe read a book or any other thing, but not movies. And then after my break, when I come back and I watch movies again, finally I can feel them again. I can take them emotionally. And I think the same thing happens with, say, music, right? If you keep listening to the same songs again and again, the same albums, the same music, and you keep listening to it every day, on and on and on and on, yes, you might enjoy it, but you might not feel it. Music is still an art and you have to feel it, and that doesn't happen anymore. But when you go away, you stop listening to music and something just hits you in your chest. It just hits you, a song hits you, and it's so deep, like you've never hit before. Nothing changed. You changed. The music didn't change, but your sensitivity is restored. That's the beauty of music, Recently, one of my friends introduced me to Elliott Smith. And Elliott Smith's music hit me so deeply. Seriously. It is so beautiful. And I would recommend everybody to go check him out because he's just really something. But beside from that, I think part of the reason why I connected so much is because I had been away from music for so long. And suddenly, when I heard his music, it just hit me. I think the same thing applies to relationships as well. When you're always around people, always around company, you sort of get saturated, I think, of people. You get tired. And you don't value them. You don't value having people around you. It's actually a privilege to have people around you. And you start feeling like, so what? But I think when you're away from people for some time, say like boarding school students or people who feel homesickness, when you're away from people, when you're away from familiarity or people who understand you especially, that feeling, it's even harder when you come in contact with people again and you appreciate people. You appreciate having their company, having the warm feeling. And I think the same thing applies to time and moments. Sometimes you'll be in a beautiful moment and the moment will just pass over you and you won't value it at that time. And I think that's a strange thing that human beings do, is that we don't value things when we're in them. It's only after we've experienced anything that we start to develop some kind of value for them. And especially, that's how time feels. After something has happened and then there's this distance and you remember that thing and then you appreciate the time that you had. You can see that with, say, nostalgia, for example, right? Nostalgia is exactly that feeling. Nostalgia makes you feel like, those days or that moment was so beautiful. But also there's this part of nostalgia that takes you away from the present moment, because I also think that the present moment is beautiful. You just don't appreciate it. And that is why you must be involved in the present more. And that's why I like Soy Cuba so much. I like that movie so much because it just is what it is. It doesn't try to be anything else. It doesn't try to impress you. It doesn't try to stimulate you or to please you. It just goes in its own patient way and it shows you what it wants to show you, and that is so beautiful. And I think we need more of that. We need more of that thing where things take their own time. We need less music, less movies, more silence, less consumption. It's not because music, movies, or any information or entertainment is bad. I don't think anything is bad. And just the fact that we've consumed so much and we have it in so much abundance that we don't value anything. And it's just sad. It really is sad. And that is why I think we should start this again. More silence. More of just staying with ourselves. Less consumption. More boredom. So that when you listen to songs again, you'll feel them more emotionally. You'll see the beauty in that. When you watch movies again, you might connect with them and feel them. And when you live life, you might start living life the way it was meant to. I'll see you again next time. Thank you for listening to me. Really means a lot. Bye.